Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah Aal-Imraan bihawlillahi wa quwwatih, and we are on ayah number 98. قال الله تعالى: قل يا أهل الكتاب لم تكفرون بآيات الله والله شهيد على ما تعملون. A similar ayah to this has preceded, which was ayah number 70. We said ayat of Allah can be kawniyah and shar'iyah. Now, what the ayat of Allah in this ayah refer to primarily is the ayah shar'iyah, which is in the scriptures. The description of the Prophet is given in their own books, and they are denying it. And so denying the last Prophet is worse for the Ahlul Kitab, because they have already been told about his coming and his description, and the description of his companions as well, all in their scriptures. As for the mushrikun, they do not have any scripture telling them of the last Prophet. So the denial of the Ahlul Kitab is worse than the denial of the mushrikeen. As for the second part, that Allah is a shaheed, meaning a witness, so that is a shahid, upon what you do, so this could be understood in a couple of ways. Number one, why do you make kufr in the ayat of Allah, meaning reject the ayat of Allah, whilst you know yourselves that Allah witnesses all that which you do? It's like a person driving a car and going over the speed limit whilst he knows that there is a speed camera directed towards him. Why would you ever want to do something as crazy as that? So upon this tafsir, the whole ayah would be one sentence. The second way of understanding it would be that the ayah is split into two sentences. So the first sentence is, why do you make kufr in the ayat of Allah? And then you'll put a full stop there. And then the next sentence begins anew. So the waw is isti'naf. Isti'naf meaning beginning something anew. So he would say, and Allah is a shaheed upon what you do, meaning to say, you should know that Allah witnesses all that which you do. So the second sentence here would be a threat. So reflecting on this ayah, we take that anyone who has prior knowledge and then rejects that prior knowledge and gives their own desires precedence over the knowledge, then these people are uglier in their rejection of the truth than those who did not have any prior knowledge to begin with, like the mushrikeen. We also find upon the first tafsir the senseless nature to go against the ayat of Allah whilst you know that Allah witnesses all that which you do. And upon the second tafsir, we have a threat that Allah witnesses all that which you do and that He will take you to account. And what follows from this is that if Allah witnesses all things, then we may take that Allah knows, sees and hears all things, because this is what you need to be a perfect witness. Ayah number 99. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لِمَ تَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ تَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا وَأَنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءُ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. So here again the Prophet ﷺ is ordered to address the people of the book. He's now asking the question, lima, why tasudduna? From the verb sadda, yasuddu saddan, with a sad. This means to divert. An, from sabilillah, the path of Allah. This means al-Islam. Whom are they diverting? Man amana, the one who has iman. Iman being a key word, of course, spoken about before. So they are diverting the believers from the path of Allah. The verb sadda can also mean to turn away, as in to turn away your own self, as opposed to turning other people away. As per the ayah, رَأَيْتَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ يَصُدُّونَ عَنْكَ صُدُودًا. The munafiqun turn away from you in aversion. He says, تَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا. تبغون from بغى يبغي, بغيا, to seek. You're seeking it, meaning the sabil. عوجا, عوج is crookedness. So what this means to say, you are seeking to make the path of Allah seem crooked in the eyes of the people. Because if they can do that successfully, then obviously they will divert people from the path of Allah. وَأَنْتُمْ شُهَدَاء, whilst you are witnesses. That's the plural of shaheed or shahid. This means to say, you witness in your own scripture that the true deen, which is acceptable to Allah, is al-Islam, which is the deen that the final prophet brought, and that the final prophet is indeed a true prophet. Again, this is all in your scriptures which you witness. And then he says that Allah is not ghafil, meaning heedless. Amma, from what? Ta'malun, you do. So he's not heedless of what you are doing, meaning your plots and your plans against the Prophet and your plan to divert people from the path of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Do not think for a second that Allah is heedless or unaware of all of this. And as you know, this is not merely just a piece of information, rather this is a threat. So reflecting on this ayah, we pick up that the Prophet is told to rebuke the Ahlul Kitab for what they do. And so we pick up a general lesson that anyone who deserves rebuke then should be rebuked. And this is the type of person who knows what he is doing. He has knowledge. He does not have the excuse of ignorance, or someone who has made a genuine slip-up or a mistake. No, these are people who are calculating and cunning, and they know exactly what they are doing. Such people deserve rebuke. We find that there are many amongst the kuffar who will try to divert people from the path of Allah Jalla wa Ala. This could be either to stop people from embracing Islam or to encourage Muslims to apostatize. We find the Ahlul Kitab doing it during the time of the Prophet, and during these times it is worse. With the advent of the internet and the digital age, you can get across to so many people all over the world and spread your poison that way. And such people who do that are shayateen. So the shayateen are not just from the jinn but also from the ins, as in Surah Al-An'am, ayah 112. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. We find the method by which the kuffar are going to divert people from Allah Jalla wa Ala, which is that they're going to try to find aspects of the deen which would make people averse to the deen of Islam. And there are many examples that can be quoted, but they may say something like, oh, look at the cruel nature in which the Muslims slaughter their animals, or that Islam is a male-dominated patriarchal system which abuses women and treats women as second-class citizens. Or perhaps how the Prophet ﷺ married Aisha radiallahu anha when she was 6 years old. They will say, is this type of practice befitting of a true prophet? And so like this, there are many examples which they will use to make the people averse to al-Islam. We also take that Allah is not heedless of what they are doing, and like we say, any time He negates an attribute, it is to affirm its polar opposite. So He's not heedless. Why? Because He has full knowledge. And like we said, this is a threat to the Ahlul Kitab. Ayah 100. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in tuti'u fariqan min alladhina utu al-kitaba yaruddukum ba'da imanikum kafirin. In this ayah, Allah Jalla wa Ala turns His attention to the believers and He gives them some advice. He says, if you tuti'u, from ata'a yuti'u ita'atan, to obey, fariqan, meaning a group of those who were given the book, yaruddukum, they will turn you back after your iman, kafirin. Kafirin is mansoob bil ya because it is a hal, and a hal is mansoob. It is also possible to take the word kafirin as a maf'ulun bihi thani, a second passive participle of the verb yaruddun. Now, what has been mentioned from the sabab al-nuzul of this ayah and the one after it, 101, is that a man from the Yahud called Shas ibn Qais passed by the Muslimin from the tribe of Aus and Khazraj, and he saw them speaking with each other in their majlis, and he saw the brotherhood that Islam brought, bringing the Aus and the Khazraj together, whereas previously these two tribes were constantly at loggerheads with each other, trying to kill each other, and Islam came and united them with the Islamic Brotherhood. This, of course, enraged this Yahudi, Shas ibn Qais, and what he did was incredibly vile. He told a boy from the Yahud to go to the majlis, to the sitting place where the Aus and the Khazraj were together speaking, and remind these people of the Yawmul Bu'ath. This was an immense day. Before the Prophet came to Al-Madinah, the Aus and the Khazraj had an immense war in which most leaders of the Aus and the Khazraj were killed, leaving only the youngsters or the more inexperienced people. Abdullah ibn Ubay, one of the leaders, he survived the Yawmul Bu'ath. He was, of course, the leader of the Munafiqeen. He survived, but many of his other co-chiefs were slain. It was a massive battle between the two tribes. So he tells this boy to go and remind them of this day. The aim is to incite hatred and enmity between the two groups. And it actually worked. He did manage to incite enmity and hatred between the two groups until they were about to fight each other again, because the Hizbiyah flared up in them. This news reached the Prophet, and he came out with a group of the Muhajirin and some of the Ansar, and he told the people, rebuking them, "Are you making calls of the days of Jahiliyyah whilst I am amongst you, and Allah has reconciled your hearts and honored you with Al-Islam?" And so the people began to realize that their hatred was just an incitement from the shaitan, and they dropped their weapons, and the fighting was stopped in its tracks before it could even begin. They cried over what they did and hugged each other. And so in response to this, they say that these two ayat were revealed, 100 and 101. The famous companion Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anh said, "I have never seen a day which started off more ugly and ended up more beautiful than this particular day." Reflecting on this ayah, we pick up what we have picked up before, how Allah Jalla wa Ala addresses the believers using the best description possible for any human being, which is a mu'min. We also notice that he says, if you obey a fariq, a group of those who were given the scripture, despite the fact that these people were enemies to Islam, look at the justice of Allah Jalla wa Ala in saying a group of them. He does not say all of them. So he does not paint everybody with the same brush. Rather, he puts the blame where it belongs, not on everyone, but on a group of them. Normally this is likely to be the leaders amongst them, because they are the ones who are full of jealousy and hatred. So that's one point of benefit which we can glean from the ayah. We also take that he uses the word yaruddukum, or turn you back. Going to kufr after Islam, this is regression, not progression. And what's funny is that the kuffar say, we are the people of progress, and as for Islam, it is for the Bronze Ages. There is no place for Islam in the world today. It is a backward deen. But according to this ayah, going to kuffar is going backwards, because it is ridda, returning, going backwards. We also take that there are many from the Ahlul Kitab who would want us to leave this deen and embrace their deen. Mainly this is from the leaders. So people who have a large following, for example, especially online, there are many people who have a large following. You will find generally they want the Muslims to leave the deen of Islam. So when we know this, we need to be on guard. And we are not to obey the Ahlul Kitab, certainly in regards to the deen and those types of matters. As for technical matters, let's say medical matters or other than that, then these are specialist fields, and of course you can take the advice of a kafir doctor or maybe a specialist in a particular field who happens to be a kafir. That is a different matter, and you can obey them because this is a specialist field. However, anything pertaining to the deen, then you need to be extra careful whom you obey, because obedience must be tethered to that which would please Allah Jalla wa Ala, or at least not displease Him. هذا والله أعلم.